Hello and welcome to Business Beat on 90.5 WICN. My name is David Ginsberg.
And I'm Giselle Rivera-Flores.
It's good to have you back, Giselle.
I know, it's been a good year that I haven't been in this beautiful studio space.
Well, I appreciate you being here because we have a special guest this week. If you haven't heard the news, there is an immersive experience featuring Van Gogh's art opening as of the 14th of November at the Mercantile Center. And joining us is the executive producer of the show, Mr. John Zoller. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
We are really excited that you took the time. Thank you for making the time to do so. This is an experience unlike any other. We had a sneak preview. It's really extraordinary.
It really is. It's a whole new way to experience art for a whole new audience.
It is. And for people that haven't experienced this before, the use of technology to bring the art to life and to create a truly immersive experience it's really stunning. You have a moment as you walk into the large room, especially where you kind of go, whoa, this. I had that moment at least. It's really kind of, and I've seen a lot of art. It's really an extraordinary thing. I'd love to learn more about how the technology comes together because the show has been touring the country and there's versions in a number of cities. How do you create something like this?
The creation is similar to any creative process. It is the technology that pushes that creation, but of course, you always want to start with a great story and a good creative vision. You could have all the technology in the world, but if you don't have a great story, it's not going to help you. But having said that, we use over 60 projectors in every show. We spend thousands of hours creating digital assets that we can then animate, that we can digitally map onto these walls and surfaces. And there's a team of about just 30 technicians who are constantly working to create this type of content. It's very involved, but at the end of the day, again, it is about that story because I hope as you went through, you also sort of felt that story flowing into you as opposed to saying, oh, there's all this technology. But the technology does give you those aha and breathtaking moments. Like in the immersive gallery, as you mentioned, you're surrounded by Van Gogh's artwork. You're bathed in it. It's on the walls all around you in 360. It's flowing over the floors. In this particular iteration, we have some really large images on the floor that kind of are a little bit arresting in terms of you really see those paintings coming to life right underneath your feet.
You do, and I think both the immersiveness, you really do feel like you're transported into the art itself, which is an extraordinary feeling. It's one thing to be in a museum and sort of looking at an image and absorbing it for what it is, but to really feel like you've been transported inside the art is a whole other level of this. It's transformative. But to your point about the storytelling narrative, there is a series of themes that run through that, including obviously his bonds with his brother Theo and that relationship, the dynamic that they had there, the notion of love and light, and also, and I think what's most important as a viewer at this point in our current history is the sense of community and the sense of connection at a time when the country is obviously quite divided. We're not going to get into politics, but the country is quite divided at the moment, and there is such a loneliness epidemic in America, and that sense of community and belonging is so important. And that theme runs through the art that's on display as part of the immersive experience.
That's a lot to unpack.
Yep.
But
the floor is yours, my friend.
It's all very true. Van Gogh did have a very close relationship with his brother Theo. They wrote over 700 letters back and forth to one another. Theo really was his champion. Whenever Van Gogh finished a painting, he would send it to Theo. Theo was an art dealer. He couldn't sell any of his paintings, but he kept them all. So that shortly after Van Gogh died, and actually shortly after Van Gogh died, Theo died.
Wow.
But Theo's wife got all those paintings out, put them on display in various exhibitions around Europe, and within about 20 years, Van Gogh was a famous artist within 20 years of his death. There is the idea of light and love and perseverance and resilience that is a through line in the storytelling. Van Gogh had a lot of issues with mental health. He certainly was lonely throughout his life, but always seeking connection. And he did find connections with peasants, with local villagers. He tried to find those connections with artists, but it was more challenging for him. But regular people on the street, he was able to really connect with. And those are the people that he painted. The other thing that he did, though, with his struggles with mental health, there's a lot of pain. And he said in his letter to his brother Theo, I want to channel that pain into beauty. So he would then go and paint and create the most beautiful thing you could think of in order to contain that pain. And when you look at, for example, some of those flower paintings that you saw in the smaller immersive gallery of the vase where we're projecting all those flower paintings on the wall, that was his goal, painting those flowers, was to paint the most beautiful flowers that you'd ever seen. And, that's where I think, going back to the question about the technology, where the technology really helps us. We have this vase that we're projection mapping onto, and then I call that gallery Van Gogh's Many Vases. We're featuring dozens and dozens of his flower paintings that your average Van Gogh amateur, just coming into the world of Van Gogh wouldn't know that he painted so many flower paintings. So it's really a wonderful way to see his work up close and then to tell those types of stories. Another great part of that story is that Van Gogh didn't have any money. He didn't get to travel. He couldn't hire models, but there was always a vase of flowers wherever he was. So he would be able to perfect his craft. He tried to really hone his craft by painting flowers whenever he could.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think another theme that really sticks out to me as well is the sense of movement, which is obviously in his brushstrokes, making sure that everything is seen through movement on his canvas, and you've been able to bring that movement to life in so many different parts of the gallery, which I think is moving on an emotional level, because it does feel like you can understand both the pain and the beauty that he saw in his own pieces and what he saw in the world, which is, I think it's touching if you're a fan of the arts, for sure.
So Van Gogh's work features those big, thick, heavy brush strokes, and I actually was able to go to the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam many years ago and see a sunflower painting. We had a reproduction of a sunflower painting hanging on the wall in our kitchen when I was a kid, and so there was that same painting on the wall. And what was there that was different from the one on our wall was that thickness, the texture of the oil paints, and I could feel the movement of those flowers looking at that painting. So when we had the opportunity with digital technology to bring those brushstrokes to life, we really went for it. For example, if you were able to see the Starry Night section of the Immersive Gallery, all the stars come to life. They're bold, brilliant colors, and they're literally swirling just like they look on that canvas. The movement is really a key part of his work, and it reflects the movement of the wind, the movement of nature, but also in some ways the turbulence in his own mind.
Yeah, and I think that's the most fascinating for me, is being able to take something that's so distinctive of his work and then bring it to life in a way that mimics it. I mean, it obviously doesn't come close to his originals, because it's obviously not his original brushstroke, but it really does embody, I think, his sense of person.
We really did try to honor his works, but then interpret them in a way that where we saw that we saw that language inside of the paintings when we added those levels of motion to his work.
Yeah, I think it's well executed. It's amazing.
It so is. And that Starry Night Room, first of all, the immersive Starry Night Room is large. And so when you're in there, you really do feel not only like you're inside the painting itself, but you really do feel a world away. At least to me, it was very calming. And at a time, and I know mental health is a theme that runs throughout the thread of his works, but at a time when stress and anxiety are quite high for folks, to be in an environment like that where it's so calming is actually a gift that you'll take with you after you leave the experience, which I think is a key element.
Without a doubt. I mean, there's been multiple studies about the power of digital art on lowering anxiety, easing anxiety, lowering blood pressure, helping people focus and get centered. And that was digital art on a computer screen or on your phone. So they would the researchers would show a participant a digital art image for 15 or 30 seconds, and they immediately registered this lowering of blood pressure and reducing of anxiety. Now we're talking about a 6,000 square foot room with massive walls where we're projecting all of this digital art. I think part of it too is that score. We have a custom score in the exhibit that was completely choreographed to the digital projections themselves, and it really does wash over you. You feel a sense of calm whenever you're there. Like whenever I go to one of our installations and I'm trying to get any work done, I say, I mean, I can do it later. I mean, I'm not going to do my emails listening to that beautiful music.
Yeah.
And there is a great sense of easing of that anxiety. Immersive gallery too, talking about community, back to your earlier point, is a great place for people to gather. It's about a 35-minute show, but people hang out in there as families and couples, sitting in our really comfortable beach chairs or on the rugs we provided, and they might stay in there for an hour.
Yeah.
And that space also is a space where we're going to be doing yoga programming here in Worcester. Yep. The first program is December 14th, it's really a popular experience because you have all of that magic of the art, the magic of the music, and you're able to feel that centering power of yoga at the same time.
That's awesome. And I've been in that room, in the Boston location, and I've been in there when it's completely packed, and it doesn't feel any different when it's empty and you're the only one. So I feel like that's a hard thing to do, and it's still executed the same way.
I want to just go do yoga in that space. That's going to be incredible.
Book us a time.
I'm on it.
Yep. I think it's at 8:30. So on Saturday, December 14th.
That's perfect, because that is also the WICN Holiday Jazz Jam is that day at noon. So that's free plug for ourselves. That's what times it perfectly. Do some yoga, come in, see some music.
Exactly.
There you go. I like it.
We're only here to help. One of the things that we talk about a lot on this show, at least, has been mental health and the mental health crisis in America. And I think it's a really powerful element of the exhibit that Van Gogh's struggles with mental health are well documented now, but in his time, you didn't discuss. It was barely even a diagnosis, other than sort of melancholia would be the preferred term. How does that awareness of his mental health and how his journey has impacted today's conversations about mental health, how is it reflected through the exhibit?
So we definitely do not shy away from his challenges with mental health. We definitely feature the fact that he was diagnosed post-mortem as alcoholic, epileptic, insomniac, bipolar, borderline personality disorder.
Wow.
He had the whole gamut of it. But we also featured the fact that how he dealt with it, which was he found an outlet for this in many ways. I mean, he wasn't an easy person to be around from what we've heard about, what the accounts we've heard about him. But when he could get away and he could focus himself and he could find a sense of stability, he was able to then channel all of that pain and suffering and struggling into these incredible works. And that's really what he was after. He was after connection. He just had all these inhibitors in the way that prevented him from doing that. But throughout the experience in that score I was talking about, we have a voice actor who's narrating passages from Van Gogh's letters to his brother Theo. He says a couple things. A normal road is fine to walk on, but you won't find any flowers growing there. So in a sense, it's better he's grateful that he had to take that path that wasn't the normal road, because that way he was able to encounter all these different types of colors and all these different ways of living. At the end of the immersive experience, there's a fairly long quote that we read where he talks about a house with a fire inside of it that's burning so powerfully, but the chimney and the windows are closed. And so the owner of the house is worried that someone may not be able to handle that fire or come and sit by that fire. And of course, he's talking about himself, wishing that he could somehow share this fire burning inside of him with the world. And it was hard for him to do in social context, but he was able to do it through his artworks. One of the things that I reflect on regularly, especially when we're talking about Van Gogh's mental health, and then it does become more of a focus during Mental Health Awareness Month, is how many more works would we have gotten out of Vincent van Gogh had the tools been available to him that are available to us today to focus on our mental health? I mean, he could have lived to the same age as Monet. He could have lived into his 80s and continued to amaze us with his works. So that's one thing when we think about people that are struggling today, why they need help. It's so that they can go on and continue to tell their story and share that story with the world.
It's a brilliant point. We are speaking with John Zoller, who is the executive producer of the Van Gogh Immersive Experience. It's at the Mercantile Center, open now. We'll be back with more Business Beat at 90.5 WICN.
The best in soul, funk, and R&B. That's what you get on the Soul Serenade. I'm your host, Tom Shaker, and I'll see you this evening at 7 right here on 90.5.
And we are back on Business Beat at 90.5 WICN. My name is David Ginsburg with Giselle Rivera-Flores, and joined by John Zoller, who is the executive producer for Exhibition Hub for the Van Gogh Immersive Experience exhibit that is now open at the Mercantile Center in downtown Worcester. Open. It's, by the way, and here's a free plug, it's really a great gift to get folks for your stocking stuffer, for office gift swaps, what have you, Yankee swaps, or to that special someone, get them tickets to see the show. It's there through the early part of 2025 at least. It's really an incredible thing. So during the break, you were telling us that the immersive art experience as a business thing has become a huge industry driver.
Immersive experiences, and obviously Van Gogh, the Immersive Experience is a very popular exhibit. We make up a small part of this, but are currently estimated at $5 billion annually.
Wow.
Around the world. And by the end of the decade, are estimated to be at around $30 billion.
Incredible.
Annually. And when you compare that to something like Live Nation, their ticket sales are around 21 billion right now.
Yeah.
So this is a huge explosive market where people are longing for, searching out these experiences where they can be transported, they can be taken to another realm. So it's up to us as experience producers to deliver on that.
Yeah.
There's definitely been some immersive shows, in air quotes, that I've been to where I say, okay, how fast can we get out of here? But really, as producers, we really have to continue to push the envelope, and that's what. In a lot of ways, I've been doing my whole career. But now with this new technology, all this new technology we have so many more tools available to create these incredible stories across the globe.
I think one of the benefits is that it's so many of the great masters, the majority of their works are housed overseas. It's difficult to travel to Europe, and it's a lot easier to bring a virtual experience to the United States, city by city, and allow people that may not otherwise get the chance to go to see the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, for example, or to go to the Louvre in Paris, to be able to see these pieces of art up close for themselves and to experience it in a way that is going to be meaningful and lasting for them.
I agree. I mean, in our one room, we have several Van Gogh paintings reproduced at their actual size. So we have all 11 of his sunflower canvases. We have some of his most iconic paintings, from Starry Night to Starry Night Over the Rhone, and then to some of the paintings that sold for the highest prices, some of them at above $80 million. Those are all on display in this one gallery. And in order to look at those sunflower paintings in their natural state in a museum or a private collection, you would spend months traveling and tens of thousands of dollars to get into those places in order to see those various paintings. And here we have them all for you reproduced in one place, along with a lot of interpretation as to why they're so important and what they meant to him. Another thing about this immersive art experience is that it has the ability to redirect people back to the originals. So we get a lot of guests who, interestingly, about 20% of our audience is 18 to 24.
Wow.
They've never set foot in an art museum in their lives. They don't even necessarily know how to get to the art museum, or they don't have a great idea of what an art museum is to them. They don't have a great interpretation of what an art museum is. But if they get hooked on digital art, on these past masters on digital art, that's the first step back towards looking at the original fine art painting, because that's where we take our inspiration from. So there's a nice artistic cycle here where we're taking these great masters that have been housed in these collections that are now more closed off to the public and redirecting the public back to those as well. So I hope to see that help revitalize some of the museums that are struggling right now.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about it on the show too, and where just consumer behavior overall has shifted over the years, and we're pulling away, or consumers are pulling away from, tangible items, and the experience has become something that everyone is yearning for. And I don't know if it's because we've reached a point where we're mass producing, everything's so accessible to us now that nothing seems unique anymore, and where now the craving is for a unique experience opposed to a unique tangible product, right? And I think that kind of feeds into it quite a bit, especially with our younger generation that kind of grew up in this era of overconsumption and all of these things, and now they're like you said, to your point, now they're able to go into an experience that brings them back to something vintage, like they would say, and something original, which gives them a new outlet and something that they have not touched yet. But yeah, I think that these experiences are doing just that. They're creating a whole new economy for us, a whole new sector in our economy, mostly because it's been so untouched before, right? It's been something that's been classified. I think also this is something that kind of bridges the gap between generations, because art has always been kind of elitist, so it has been very inaccessible, to your point. Traveling the world to see all of the Van Goghs is nearly impossible for many people, for the average person. This all brings it right in front of them, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not just this experience, but all experiences have been boosted in our economy because of that, because it's bringing in something that has been inaccessible at one point to a new access point. And for you guys, it's fantastic, because you're not bringing the originals, you're bringing the storyline, you're making it a new original in a way. So I'm just like fascinated by this whole thing, because I think this is something that everyone should have, and everyone should be gifting, and everyone should be able to see. I've taken my daughters to the one in Boston, and I'm a big Van Gogh fan, or impressionist just in general. And so when I saw the one in Boston, that was phenomenal, and seeing them immersed in this experience that they would otherwise see at a museum was just eye-opening. It brought them to a whole new level of understanding.
A couple things rang true there for me. I mean, that really rang out for me. One is the idea of having the experience. There's a great T.S. Eliot quote: "We had the experience but missed the meaning." And what I think what we're always longing to find that meaning. And in an experience like Van Gogh, the immersive experience, you get closer to that meaning. You live inside of that experience that tends to deliver that feeling of meaning. And I do think today's consumer is looking for a meaningful reason to spend their money.
Yes.
And we do provide that with Van Gogh, the immersive experience. David, to your point, absolutely. Instead of buying some kind of product, mass-produced product, get your loved one a gift card to Van Gogh, the immersive experience for post-Christmas.
Yep. Hanukkah's late this year too, folks. Remember that. Hanukkah starts the 26th of December. So, again, 8 nights. So, one of them could be tickets.
You absolutely can.
I'm
Absolutely
Latina,
can.
so Christmas started November 1st. So you have 60 days
Come on,
of
everybody.
gift
I'm
giving.
not buying you that many gifts, Giselle. Come on.
Pick a friends, get 60
Yeah.
of them, and distribute. I think this is amazing. Is there a way to get community involved in this in any way? Do you guys offer any group discounts or anything that you want to highlight?
So we do. We have a lot. We have a pretty robust groups program.
Awesome.
There are ways directly on the website, vangoghexpo.com, that you can book for larger groups. We also have student, senior, and military discounts. We also created a really robust educational package for school groups, so that school groups can, who are booking for probably next year can come in at specially discounted rates. We get a lot of seniors who come too, a lot of senior centers that come. And so we definitely have created a lot of packages for larger groups for more accessibility. And to your point, Giselle, Van Gogh was such an accessible artist. His work is so accessible. So for it to have been made inaccessible, locked behind these doors, we're glad to kind of break it out and free it. I mean, he took the everyday and elevated it to the extraordinary. And that's what these immersive experiences are also trying to do, is give you that sense of being transported and maybe give you a little view of the transcendent as well.
Yeah, I think something you mentioned, John, also, we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to touch on this because I think it's important in that you mentioned the younger folks, the 18 to 24-year-olds that aren't going to museums. We grew up, we went to museums,
Yep.
as kids on field trips, and then as adults because we enjoy going to art museums. And this is a great way to get kids not only hooked on the digital experience, but on art itself, to kind of get more open to the idea of art, because the idea of going to a museum can be intimidating. It can feel stuffy, and the expense is one thing, but there can be kind of a stuffy experience, and how do you behave and so forth, and they don't know you can't take selfies with every image and so forth.
You know where I stand on that.
I do know.
David,
I do know.
I make a point of it.
I know. But not everyone is you, Giselle.
To your point,
yeah.
art is meant to be accessible to
Right.
the world.
And that's why the
is.
exhibit's so great, is because it makes it accessible. It's almost, for us as older folks, it's a chance to see the art and really experience it in a new way. And for the younger generation, it gets them hooked on the experience and hopefully develops a passion within them.
As we were saying before the show, art is the essential human expression.
Yep.
I mean, it's the thing that it's what connects us to the divine. And for us to be able to do that in a large format for a great number of people, to spark that curiosity within them or to further it, we're grateful to have that opportunity.
Yeah, and to that point, I'm going to mention a quote from a book written by a mutual friend of ours, Giselle's best friend, but a friend, Jen Gaskin, wrote a book called The Exit. And there's a line in that book that she wrote that history tells us what happened, but art tells us what it felt like. And that has stuck out to me since I read the book a year and a half ago, whenever it was. And I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Well, I'm going to use that in every interview for the rest of my life.
Just quote Jennifer Gaskin. The book is called The Exit.
That's fantastic. I mean, it does remind me a little bit. We do a Monet, the Immersive Experience.
Yeah.
And Monet's work started right around the time photography was invented. And so people said, well, that's it. Painting's dead. And Monet said, no, a photograph can tell you what something looks like, but it can't tell you what it feels like.
Yeah.
So the same exact kind of way, and that's a great way of thinking about it, because that's what happens in Van Gogh, the Immersive Experience, is you're opened up to this whole realm of emotions that you didn't necessarily know you even had coming in the door, and you come out with this sense of some bit more completion, having had that encounter with the art. At the end of the experience, there's two really powerful moments. One, through virtual reality, you see the world through the artist's eyes. And secondly, you can actually create your own artwork in the exhibit and scan it into our scanner and go up on the big screen and become a part of the show forever. So you're able to leave a little bit of that of yourself behind there. But we're not taking something away, we're adding something. I think that's really what art is doing here.
Yeah.
It's a movement. It's all about the evolution of the piece. So I think it's fascinating.
I love the idea of a selfie. So you're doing selfies with every masterpiece around the world?
Not a
I'm
selfie,
exaggerating.
but I definitely do make a point to take a photo with the pieces that I go to and the ones that I visit, especially when they say no photo. I definitely sit down and ask someone to take a photo of me, because it's supposed to be for everyone's enjoyment. And honestly, the arts, I'm a big arts fan, and it's like Jennifer's point, it shows us how we're supposed to behave as humans, and how oftentimes when we're behaving ugly, it shows us that too. And it's a good reflection for us to kind of take a second and think back on how we're harming each other and how we shouldn't be doing these things. And so for me, it's just, I make a point of it. I know David gives me a hard time. I almost called you Jamie.
Jamie's her husband, so please don't confuse that. The lines are blurry as it is.
Yeah, David, Jamie, it's one person at this point. They're both giving me a hard time. But yeah, so that's why I make a point of it. And, I tell the kids the same thing. When you go see something, make sure you embed it in yourself. And if you want to write about it, write about it. And if you want to take a photo sitting next to it, feel free, because the art is meant in that way.
It's a great point. We are unfortunately out of time, but before we go...
We just got started.
I know. We'll have to have you back. Where do people go to get tickets and learn more about Van Gogh, the Immersive Experience, which is now at the Mercantile Center in Worcester?
So best place to go to get tickets, vangoghexpo.com. And you can select Worcester there, and you can pick your times. We're closed Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We're open every other day. 10 to 7 are the entry times, except on the weekends we open at 9 and we're open till 8.
Beautiful.
So, and we're looking forward to a busy holiday season for everybody to come down and celebrate the gift of each other at Van Gogh, the Immersive Experience.
John Zoller, thank you so much, and here's to good business.